The night the music stopped, so did something inside her. Clara Whitmore had waited her entire life for her first kiss. She had imagined it beneath lantern light, soft as spring rain, given by someone who saw her heart before her face. Instead, it was stolen under the rough glow of a saloon chandelier, drowned in whiskey breath and cruel laughter. She had trusted the wrong man, a smooth-talking gambler passing through town who promised her a dance, then cornered her behind the swinging doors. Before she could even understand what was happening, his hand gripped her chin, and his mouth crashed against hers. It wasn't tender. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't love. It was possession. And when he pulled away, smirking as if he'd won something, Clara felt smaller than dust on the saloon floor. The worst part wasn't the kiss. It was the laughter from the men who saw and did nothing. In that moment, she learned how cruel the world could be to a woman with soft dreams. She ran, out into the dark, into the desert wind, into the silence where her tears could fall unseen. She scrubbed her lips with the back of her hand as if she could erase the memory, but shame sticks harder than dust. She told herself she was foolish for ever believing in romance. Foolish for saving something sacred in a world that didn't respect sacred things, but someone had seen everything. Leaning against a post across the street had been a cowboy most folks called Colt, quiet, reserved. A man who spoke with his actions, not his mouth. He had watched the gambler swagger back inside. He had seen Clara run, and in his chest something burned. Colt wasn't a man who interfered in every saloon scuffle. The West was rough, and grown men made their own choices. But what he'd witnessed wasn't a scuffle. It was theft, not of lips, but of innocence. He found her at the edge of town near the old oak tree, her shoulders shaking under the moonlight. He didn't come close at first, just stood a few steps away so she wouldn't feel cornered again. His voice, when it came, was low and steady. He didn't deserve that. Clara stiffened. She expected mockery. Instead, she heard something unfamiliar. Respect. She wiped her tears quickly. "It doesn't matter." "It does," Colt replied. "First things matter." She didn't look at him. "You wouldn't understand." He hesitated, then said something that surprised even himself. "Maybe not the same way, but I understand what it means when something meant to be given gets taken." That made her look at him. There was no pity in his eyes, no hunger, just quiet strength, a steadiness like the earth itself. "I'm sorry," he said simply, and somehow that apology, from a man who hadn't wronged her, hurt and healed all at once. Days passed. Clara avoided the saloon, avoided the stairs, but she couldn't avoid the cowboy who seemed to appear whenever she needed steady ground. When her horse spooked near the creek, Colt was there. When her supply wagon broke a wheel, he fixed it without charging a dime. He never pushed, never assumed, never crossed the invisible line she kept drawn around herself, and slowly she began to breathe again. One evening, as the sky melted into streaks of orange and violet, Clara found herself sitting beside him on a ridge overlooking the valley. The wind danced gently between them. "Why are you being kind to me?" she finally asked. Colt removed his hat, running a hand through his sun-warmed hair. "Because someone should have been." She swallowed hard. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable but alive. "You think a first kiss can mean something?" she asked quietly. Colt turned to her fully now. "It's supposed to." She let out a fragile laugh. "Mine didn't." He studied her face carefully, like a man reading sacred scripture. "Then maybe," he said slowly, "that wasn't your first kiss." Her brows furrowed. He leaned a little closer, but not close enough to touch. A kiss ain't just lips meeting. It's intention. It's respect. It's choice. His voice dropped softer. "It's two hearts agreeing." Her breath caught, and then he said the words that would change everything. "Now let me show you how love is meant to feel." He didn't move closer after saying it, didn't grab her, didn't assume. He waited. The power wasn't in the words, it was in the waiting. And for the first time since that terrible night, Clara felt something stronger than shame rising in her chest. Choice. If you're feeling this story already, If you believe love should be gentle, not forced, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Because some stories don't just entertain, they heal. Clara's heart pounded so loudly, she was certain Colt could hear it. The world around them seemed to pause. Even the wind held its breath. No one had ever given her space like this. No one had ever placed the power back into her hands. "You'd wait?" she asked softly. "For as long as it takes," he replied. There it was again, that steadiness. She searched his face for deception. Found none. Only patience carved from years under open skies. This wasn't a man chasing conquest. This was a man offering something sacred. Her fear didn't vanish in an instant. Healing rarely works that way. But courage doesn't require the absence of fear, only the decision to step forward despite it. Slowly, almost trembling, Clara reached for his hand. Colt didn't tighten his grip. He simply let his fingers rest against hers, warm and grounding. "I don't want it to feel like before," she whispered. "It won't," he said. "Because this time it's yours." The sun dipped lower, painting her skin in gold. She took a shaky breath. And then she leaned forward. Their lips met softly. No force, no rush, just warmth, a question asked and answered at the same time. His hand rose gently to her cheek, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. What she felt wasn't fire or frenzy. It was safety. It was respect. It was the quiet understanding that love doesn't take, it gives. When they parted, her eyes shimmered, but not from tears of shame. "That," she whispered, almost in awe, "felt different." Colt smiled, brushing his thumb lightly beneath her eye. "That's because it was chosen." Something inside Clara mended in that moment. The stolen memory no longer held the same power. It didn't define her. It didn't own her story. Days later, the gambler returned to town, drunk and loud as ever. He noticed Clara walking beside Colt and sneered. "Miss me, sweetheart." Before Clara could shrink, Colt stepped slightly forward, not blocking her, but standing beside her. She surprised them both. "No," she said firmly. "You never had me to miss." The saloon went quiet. The gambler scoffed, but there was no laughter this time. The town had seen the difference. They had seen the cowboy, who treated her like something precious, not something to claim. And that difference changed everything. That night, Clara stood again beneath lantern light, but this time by choice. Colt offered his hand for a dance. She took it. As they moved slowly across the wooden floor, she rested her head lightly against his chest. "You were right," she murmured. "First things do matter." He smiled against her hair. "And the right ones last." Months later, when Colt asked her to build a life beside him, there were no grand speeches, just honesty. "I don't promise perfection," he told her, "but I promise respect." She said yes without hesitation. Because love wasn't about stolen moments. It was about chosen ones. And every time he kissed her after that, whether beneath blazing sunsets or quiet starlit skies, it reminded her of the truth she'd learned. Love is never taken, it is given. And if this story touched your heart, if you believe that real love protects, honors, and waits, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because here, we tell stories where strength is gentle, cowboys have honor, and love always finds its rightful way home.